Yeah, it says it's offline. So people are just waiting in the chat room. Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. It is offline, so there's not actually a stream there. It's just the waiting room. The way that the software. Okay, enough talking about the live streams. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and joining us regardless of these technical hiccups to talk about the news today. So, you know what? Let's just get into the news, shall we? Welcome into Morning Invest on this Friday, August 21st. So glad to see you. This is the travel edition of our show. Yes, we're on the road, but still put a show together for you. There's a lot of news to get to today, and I want to get to the 5 things you need to know to start your day over your cup of coffee, wherever you happen to be, as well as we're going to do a deep dive this morning on the jobs numbers. So we're pulling the latest data on those jobs numbers, which are not good. Could that lead us to seeing an additional stimulus check? There are a number of experts saying, look, because of these jobs numbers being down, this could propel Congress further into talks about stimulus checks. So we're going to look at where things stand right now on that front, but also more broadly on the economy. And this number was not good. I mean, you know, the White House was expecting some good jobs numbers. Not so good. And this all comes, of course, a few days before President Trump and the Republican National Convention will kick off and, you know, highlighting their, you know, what they've accomplished. And these jobs numbers do not bode well for them this morning. So let's get into some of the things that I think you need to know about this morning. Thank you so much, by the way, for subscribing to our morning newsletter. It went out just a short time ago. If you just go to morninginvest.com, you can subscribe to the morning newsletter. It's totally free. We work very hard on it and delivered to you first thing in the morning so you can enjoy your coffee first thing in the morning. So thanks to everyone joining us. And I apologize. We're trying out some new software today because we are traveling. So we're using a Mac version of some studio quality, broadcast quality software, and we had to do some crazy last minute switching between different streams. So if you were over on our other live stream, I apologize. That stream crashed because the Wi-Fi went down. We had to switch and build a whole new stream in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your patience. So thank you to everyone who's here in the chat today and leaving us some great comments. Thank you, everyone. Tim Bomba says, thank you while you're doing this on vacation. Well, thank you for watching. You know, I love doing this, and thank you for watching, and I'll continue to do it. Okay, let's get to the 5 things that I think you need to know about on your Friday to kickstart your day. And these are the things that resonated most with me over the past 24 hours, the things that stood out to me the most. And let's start with the Democratic National Convention. I think it's the biggest story of the morning. And, you know, Joe Biden took to the stage yesterday to accept the nomination. He is now officially the nominee of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris is the vice presidential pick. They ended the night. You know, it's just so bizarre. I have to say, you know, everyone up on stage with these masks and fireworks going off, and it was all fairly subdued the whole week. You know, there wasn't really like a big live event during this. It was very, all the speeches were live, or many of the speeches were live, but they weren't in front of thousands of people like we would normally see at a convention. And, you know, to be honest with you, I really thought that they did a fantastic job. I think overall, the putting this kind of an event together at the last minute and pulling it off like they did, particularly I think the thing that stood out to me is the roll call vote, which was that 30-minute going state to state to state roll call vote, getting to see, you know, veterans of the military, you know, people of color all over the United States. It was a pretty impressive roll call vote. One thing that stood out to me, one of the biggest stories of the week, and I wrote about this in the newsletter this morning, is that Rhode Island, you guys know about Rhode Island, right? Which is that Rhode Island ended up having the one of the biggest stories of the week. We actually learned that they have a state appetizer. Yes, like you have a state bird, they had a state appetizer. At the for Rhode Island. I didn't know. Does any other state have a state appetizer? Their state appetizer is calamari, by the way. Did anybody else know that? I had no idea. But they featured these Rhode Island fishermen and said, you know, during the pandemic, our governor managed to allow us to sell directly to consumers, saved our industry. And if you come to Rhode Island, calamari, baby. You guys can hear me okay, right? I just want to make sure with this new software and switching between videos, you guys can hear me. Mark Diamaggio says, Clayton is a Democrat. No, I'm not. Thank you for telling me what I am. Mark, you are an atheist. Mark, you are 5'7" and white. Thank you for telling me what I am. I'm not a Democrat. But you guys can hear me okay in the chat? Just let me know you guys can hear me okay in the chat. But please don't tell me what I am. Don't tell me my politics. So even, it was actually pretty interesting. Even Fox News raved about this. We'll play some of what Fox News had to say about Joe Biden's speech last night. You guys can hear me okay. Here's a little bit of Joe Biden's speech last night. And next week, of course, we will be covering the Republican National Convention in detail. So don't you fear. We spent 3-4 days covering the DNC. Next week, we will cover the RNC. That's how you do it if you're in the news biz, okay? But don't tell me what I am. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. Mark, what are you? So here's Joe Biden speaking last night, and Fox News and others said it was an excellent speech. Fox News raved about this speech. It hit all marks, and people are saying it defied expectations. I guess people were expecting, come on, man, Joe Biden, or Trump's version of him, dementia Joe Biden. It hit on all cylinders and hit all the right points last night. So good on Joe Biden. He's been waiting for this his entire career. Good for him.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom. Give people light, and they will find the way. Give people light. Those are words for our time. The current president has cloaked American darkness for much too long. Too much anger, too much fear, too much division. Here and now, I give you my word. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. I'll be an ally of the light, not the darkness. It's time for us, for we the people, to come together. And make no mistake, united we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. We'll choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege. I'm a proud Democrat, and I'll be proud to carry the banner of our party into the general election. So it's with great honor and humility I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president. I'll work hard for those who didn't support me, as hard for them as I did for those who did vote for me. That's the job of a president, to represent all of us, not just our base or our party. This is not a partisan moment. This must be an American moment. It's a moment that calls for hope and light and love, hope for our future, light to see our way forward, and love for one another.
So there was a line that resonated with me when he talked about, look, I will be, I'm a Democrat. That's Joe Biden speaking. I'm a Democrat and I'm running for president of the United States, but I will be a president for all Americans. That was a line that really stood out for me. Look, I've interviewed Joe a number of times over the years, both at Fox News in New York, but also at Fox News in Philadelphia when I was the anchor at Good Day Philadelphia. Of course, close to his neck of the woods there, Wilmington, Delaware. And he is that kind of guy. I mean, he grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and say what you will about him, how you feel about his politics, some of the stuff that's come out recently about whatever, the news reports about sexual harassment and those other things. He's always been sort of seen as sort of a down-to-earth kind of person, and that's the way that Barack Obama played him up earlier in the week. So we'll see. I mean, look, now all eyes on the debates, right? Can't wait to see these debates at the end of September. And how well will he stand up against President Trump? I mean, that's going to be the real question. So the sort of back and forth about who's got dementia, who's got Alzheimer's. I mean, this is the kind of discussion we're having in this country right now. It's going to be interesting to see, does President Trump go right after him? Does he attack him? Does he come out and show compassion? What's that debate going to look like? Because they were all gloves pulled off this week. Fox News even raving about the speech, saying that Fox News said that it was enormously effective. Brett Baer, Karl Rove, and others said that the speech was spot on. And it's kind of weird though, because Bret Baier was like, at the same time he was praising him, he also then continued to talk about how he's in mental decline. So that was interesting. Like, okay, you're praising his speech. You're saying, wow, what a great speech. And then at the same time, you're also saying you're talking about his like mental decline. Well, what is it? I mean, you deliver a speech like that where you have Fox News people praising you, and you can then claim he's in mental decline. I don't know. Karl Rove added that Biden's speech was an excellent end to the convention, calling the former VP's remarks very good. And there was a lot of people on Fox News. I was really stunned to see. Political panel to me is always fair. I like Carl, Britt. I like their analysis. Bret Baier as well, and they thought he did an excellent job. So now the eyes turn to the Republican National Convention next week. How many of you plan to watch the Republican National Convention next week? Let me know in the chat. I would love to know. I saw a bunch of people saying, I'm not watching next week. I'm not watching it. Yeah, it is a teleprompter. But there's an art to delivering a speech effectively and being able to communicate the right points of emotion and thinking about this political moment. Famously, there's not a lot of people that get up there and can just wing it with the speech. I will remember, I think it was 1993 or 1994, George Stephanopoulos writes about it in his book. It's a fascinating book about Bill Clinton, who was to deliver the State of the Union address. Say what you will about Bill Clinton. And say what you will about the creepiness of those photos that just came out, flying on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and all that stuff. Bill Clinton is one of the greatest speakers to ever live that I've ever seen. And here's a guy who went down to deliver his State of the Union address, and the teleprompter broke. And he didn't have, the speech in his binder was different than the speech in the teleprompter. And so President Clinton got up to speak at the podium, and as soon as he started to say hello, and everyone was clapping and was sitting down, the teleprompter broke. And so for the first 20 or 30 minutes, he just ad-libbed it. And no one knew the difference. No one could tell at home. No one knew anything that he didn't, like he just winged it. And it sounded like he was reading a speech, but he wasn't. There was no teleprompter. Say what you will about Bill Clinton, but as a Rhodes Scholar, very few people are better than that. Anyway, that's a little bit of history and not politics, but fascinating. I find those little bits of political news really fascinating. Imagine what would happen. You're getting up in front of millions of people around the world to deliver a State of the Union speech, and you've been working on the speech for weeks, and you kind of know it, and you get up there, and then the teleprompter goes down. How many of us would be like, huh? Can we wait 15 minutes till we get that teleprompter fixed? Can I go to the bathroom? Huh? I can't slow down the chat today. I apologize because I'm traveling. There's no way I can get in there right now and do that. Someone's saying, can you slow down the chat? I'm trying, man. I'm trying to keep up with it. We've got a lot of people here today. We got thousands, man. Doc Rio says, thank you for that history. I love your thumbnail, by the way, or your avatar, Doc Rio TV. Thank you. I'm going to try to do that. You look way cooler than me. That's for sure. That's for sure, Doc. Actually, I have some sunglasses. Maybe I could try that. Try that here. Doc is way cooler than I am. So yes, I think it's going to be important, folks. I think it's going to be really important to watch the Republican National Convention next week, or to dissect what's being talked about, because as someone just pointed out in our chat today, it's important to get both sides. It is. That's why I don't read just conservative publications, and I don't just read liberal publications, and I don't just read middle of the road publications and international publications. I try to read all of the publications as much as I can. That's how you get a broad array of different ideas and understanding about what's actually going on. So that's very, very important. Another big thing last night at the DNC, before we move on from the DNC, was Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who I love her. I'm just going to say it. I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Seinfeld was one of my all-time favorite shows. She is hilarious. There's very few women comedians that I find funnier than her. I think maybe her and maybe Kristen Wiig But Julie Louis-Dreyfus is amazing. And if you've ever watched the show Veep on HBO, she's hilarious in that as well. Anyway, she delivered like a 3-minute thing last night, and everyone I saw on Twitter was like, holy smokes, why does she not have like her own late night talk show right now? She is so good and very, very funny. And of course, just went through breast cancer and everything else. Fantastic woman. Anyway, here's Julia last night. Here's some highlights from her taking down Donald Trump, but also poking fun at herself and many other things. Watch.
Just remember, Joe Biden goes to church so regularly that he doesn't even need tear gas and a bunch of federalized troops to help him get there. Good evening, America, and welcome to the fourth night of the 2020 Democratic National Convention, Uniting America.
Okay.
Okay, these last few nights have been going
I'm on the
so
show, guys,
well.
please.
We decided to add a fifth night where we will just play
tell us
Michelle
when you're
Obama's
ready.
speech
Give us
on a
a-
loop.
Give us a cue.
I first met Joe Biden when I was doing my show Veep. I played the vice president, and he was, in fact, the vice president, and we hit it off immediately. Soon after, I was asked to be on the cover of a magazine. Remember those? And I was so excited. It was like, oh, what's it going to be? People or Vogue or Rolling Stone? Well, it turns out it was for Arrive, the official onboard magazine of Amtrak, which nobody ever reads, even though it's free. And the day it came out, my phone rang, and it was the vice president telling me he loved the cover and the whole article, and that it was one of the best issues of Arrive he had ever read. And that is just one of the many reasons that I wanted to be here tonight for Joe. And to remind you that Joe Biden not only knows how to read, but also he reads everything. Hi, Andrew. I'm so glad to see you. So what did you think about Kamala Harris's speech last night?
It was tremendous. I was so happy for her.
I know, me too. She's fabulous. I cannot wait to see her debate our current vice president, Mika Pints. Or is it Paints?
It's pronounced Ponce, I believe.
Oh, some kind of weird foreign name?
Yeah, not very American sounding.
Yeah, that's what people are saying, strongly. So, how can you help Joe? It's super simple. Vote. Right now, you can text VOTE to 30330 to learn about all of your voting options and make the best plan for how to vote in your community, wherever you are. An easy way to remember 30330 is that's the year Donald Trump will finally release his tax returns. If we all vote, there is nothing Facebook, Fox News, and Vladimir Putin can do to stop us. I plan to follow the example of 6 current cabinet members, Vice President Pence and President Trump himself, and vote by mail. To find out everything you need to know about mail-in ballots, your polling place, or just, am I registered? Text VOTE to 30330. 30330. That would be the president's golf score if he didn't cheat. Okay, look, I'll admit that was a little nasty, but we all know he's a cheater. And I'm proud to be a nasty, nasty woman. You know, when Donald...
There you go. So that's Julie Louis-Dreyfus last night. You know, she has not been afraid to go after Donald Trump over the past few years. So there she was, and very, very funny. Regardless of your politics, it was very funny. So I still have Doc Rios up here on the screen. Man, I'm giving you a lot of coverage, Doc. Sorry about that, and I'm sorry about the clicking and the background. I'm trying to play with this new software, so figuring things out. Yes, I wish as I get new comments, they provide clicks, and I wish there was a way to turn that off, but I don't know how to do that, unfortunately. So I apologize. Yes, and my little girl, before we get into more of the news, she's been bugging me here on vacation. She says, "Daddy, I drew up a sign I really would love. Can I share it on the show?" And she's been dancing around in the background. Okay, Ava, you can come in and show your sign.
Subscribe. 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 Subscribe.
I can't see it.
And subscribe.
It's too far away. Oh, you're doing your subscribe, like and subscribe, and like the video. Subscribe and like the video. Can you come down and say hi?
Hi. Hi.
Thank you. They would like you to smash that like button and subscribe to the video. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Great.
Subscribe.
That's the subscribe dance.
On our video.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Yes. So the other big story that we're following is, President Trump tweeting about this convention last night. And right after Joe Biden gave his speech, President Trump said, well, in 47 years, Joe did none of the things of which he now speaks. He will never change, just words. So we will get to see next week when President Trump and Republicans take to the stage for the Republican National Convention. It'll be interesting to see the story of two Americas right now and where we are headed in this country. So that will be the very latest. We'll see that Republican National Convention next week. How many of you plan to watch the convention next week? Let me know. I would love to hear that. One of the other big stories we're following for you this morning is, of course, Steve Bannon, and the very latest on the former White House chief strategist who was arrested yesterday. But it's interesting, out of the Southern District of New York. That's the argument that I wanted to talk to about. In the recent firing of the top federal prosecutor there was intended to sort of quell criminal investigations, it seemed, into the Trump administration. That didn't happen. According to federal prosecutors in New York, they apparently just appear to have missed that memo altogether, and they've continued on their path of going after fraud. That's what they're doing. Thursday's arrest of Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief strategist, served as a big reminder that no one within the president's inner circle is automatically immune from federal scrutiny. We learned overnight that Steve Bannon was arrested on a 150-foot yacht from a Chinese fugitive, by the way. Three others were also charged with defrauding online donors in the name of helping build the president's cherished southern border wall. Bannon pleaded not guilty at a hearing and walked in there in handcuffs and pleaded not guilty. So he's excited for his day in court. The indictment, of course, though, came about 2 months after the abrupt dismissal of Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, who had overseen several investigations with sort of tentacles leading into the Trump campaign and orbit of the Trump administration, including Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney. So, for those people that are sort of thinking that this is all about politics, it's not. It's really about fraud. I wanted to play for you, if I can bring it up here. I have to try to drag it in here if I can. Sound bite, because I thought that this was interesting. Let me see if I can bring this in as my little girl's dancing around the background.
What you're going to see is that Steve Bannon is going to become a football right now in the presidential election, at least for the next few weeks, unless something else pops up in the news cycle. The indictment looks really strong. You don't get weak indictments out of the Southern District of New York. And if you just look what's out there on front that the U.S. Attorney put on the page there, it's pretty astounding. So this is not about politics. It's about fraud. If you look at the indictment, what you see is that Bannon and Baldolado with this organization promised the investors or promised the contributors to this organization that every penny would go to building the wall with Mexico. And in fact, they consistently defrauded those contributors. The head of the organization took $350,000. Bannon himself took $1 million. They engaged in a variety of activities to cover this up. I think the president should be worried because not that I think that Bannon is necessarily going to spill beans on the president. There are plenty of beans out there already. But I think that the arrest of Bannon is just one more instance where we look at the corruption in the Trump administration. And it's one more instance where the Democrats can simply stand up and say, Joe Biden is a decent guy. Look who he surrounds himself with, right? Donald Trump isn't. Look who he surrounds himself with.
Interesting take on this, huh? What do you think about that? That it's not about politics, it's about fraud. And now we know the amount of, there's a number of people who've now come forward who gave their money to this wall project and are furious I mean, they give money that has been spent on boats and lavish lifestyles by these guys. It did not go to build a southern border wall. It went to Steve Bannon and his friends so that they could have lavish parties and buy boats. That's outrageous. And so some of these people who've been defrauded by Bannon said, I hope that they enjoy these full body cavity searches while they're in prison. They preyed on these people. They preyed on these people because they knew once Bannon got involved and could, drum up support, laying claim to President Trump as my friend and all of these things, that money would pour in, and it did. And millions poured in. Really disgusting. Let's talk about the coronavirus this morning. We've got some pretty troubling news this morning about coronavirus and how it affects young people. Apparently, according to the news, it's more contagious among young people than originally thought, and apparently children are the likely biggest spreaders of this. Of the 122 children that they looked at in this research, 0 to 22 years, 49 tested positive for coronavirus, and 18 experienced late onset coronavirus. Kids who tested positive displayed much higher levels of the virus in their airways than even adults in the ICU. So kids are much more contagious with coronavirus than we initially thought. That's incredibly troubling. One of the doctors said, I was surprised by the high levels of the virus that we found in the children of all ages, especially in the first days of the infection, the first 2 days of infection. So again, children who, but they're saying the viral loads of these hospitalized patients are significantly lower than a healthy child who's walking around with a high viral load of COVID, meaning they're not showing necessarily the symptoms, but they've got a higher amount of COVID, and they're basically walking around with it, spreading it to other people because they don't show the symptoms, and they're affected in different ways. As if we needed more bad news about our potential school year coming up. Let's talk about the post office now. Here's another story that I think you need to know about this morning. And trouble at the post office, at the mail processing centers across the country right now. Workers have been discovering that their automated sorting machines have been disabled, unplugged, and padlocked. Yeah, that's right. So this postal story continues to be an absolute crap show. And inside a massive mail sorting facility in South Los Angeles, workers fell so far behind there because of processing packages that by early August, gnats and rodents were swarming around the containers of rotted fruit and meat, and yes, baby chickens. Baby chickens. We included this story in our newsletter this morning, in part because it's so troubling. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy responded to the national outcry and said that he's going to stop the disruption until after the election. But postal workers say that significant damage has already been done. And there's farm producers, poultry producers in Maine that would send usually little chicks, baby chicks by mail. And normally they travel just fine in the Postal Service. The Postal Service delivers livestock. Did you know that? They deliver baby chickens. And these baby chickens, normally, she says, everyone, you might have 1 or 2 that would die in the mail out of 5,000 that you're sending, but usually they all survive. Now, in this most recent round that this woman from Maine, from a farmer in Maine, sent 4,800 baby chicks were dead because the post office just delayed and couldn't get them shipped. So these chickens just died. These little baby chicks just died. She said usually they arrive every 3 weeks like clockwork. Out of 100 birds, you may have 1 or 2 that die, but not thousands. This is just another example of the mess right now. Livestock and animals that are being shipped and relied on by the U.S. Postal Service to keep our economy running. And these farmers, these poultry producers and others are just outraged that now they can't even rely on, getting this information, getting these things delivered right to their house on time, right to their farms on time. Incredibly troubling. Really, really disgusting. We've got some UFO news that I want to get to this morning. Yeah, that's right. Ivan Wagner, he's a Russian cosmonaut, There's been quite a bit of UFO news lately. We're going to be covering it on our other channel if you're into that sort of thing. We've got our UFO channel, my Paranormal Post channel, so I hope you come over and subscribe to that. It's just youtube.com/paranormalpost. We'll have our new video, should be live today. Our weekly wrap-up of the paranormal news will be on that channel, so please come over and subscribe. We'll make sure we have a link to it in the show description below. Again, it's youtube.com/paranormalpost, but some big UFO news from a Russian cosmonaut aboard the International Space Station. Now, this cosmonaut, I'm going to play some video here and show you what he caught on camera. Okay, this is... Let's hit play here. Can we see this? Okay, he's shooting the Aurora Borealis. He was filming a time-lapse of the Aurora Borealis. You can see this. Quite beautiful. He's quite beautiful. And he was orbiting the International Space Station when, look what he captures on camera. Potential UFOs flying by. He says at 9 to 12 seconds, 5 objects appear, flying alongside with the same distance of each other. So let's go back. I want you to see this again. Take a look at this. What do you think these are? Do you think there's meteors? Look at that. Here they are. Do you see that? He's on board the International Space Station. He's on board the... Thank you, Eve. He's on board the International Space Station, saying that these are UFOs, that this is something he's not seen before. And this is remarkable. Capturing this time-lapse footage. Flying in perfect unison. Look at this, here in red. Are those meteors? Come on. 5 meteors in perfect alignment? Really? So again, this is Ivan Wagner, a Russian cosmonaut who is currently on the International Space Station, who caught this in a time-lapse photo from the International Space Station. It's pretty remarkable stuff, folks. Let me know what you think about that. We're going to be covering more of that on our, like I said, on our Paranormal Post channel. So please come over and subscribe there at youtube.com/paranormalpost. All right, I do want to deep dive the jobs numbers now, and the very latest on this. We see, the question this morning I want to ask you about these latest jobs numbers is, will we see additional stimulus checks because these jobs numbers have been so low? That is the sentiment being floated right now in Washington. And will the White House be compelled to issue $1,200 stimulus checks? Look, we've already had widespread agreement from Democrats and Republicans and the White House for further stimulus checks. But Congress is dithering. They're not doing anything. Mitch McConnell and his Republicans are home until September 8th. Democrats in the House, they have a recess until the middle of September. What will happen from Democrats and Republicans on additional round of stimulus? We now know about this skinnier stimulus bill that's been rolled out. We're getting some more details this morning about it, including the $300 in extra weekly federal unemployment benefits until December 27th. So yes, it would extend through the end of the year. There'd be another round of Paycheck Protection Program money. Look, I know some people said, well, this is fake news because it only leaked. It was just leaked information. Yeah, it came from Republican aides who leaked this information to Republican sources and conservative news sources. We're likely to see this by the end of the week, folks. We're likely to see this maybe by this afternoon or even tomorrow, what this new skinny bill would look like. Money for the post office as well. $10 billion for the U.S. Postal Service. Liability protections for businesses. Now, this is according to Politico, citing 2 GOP sources. It would also allocate additional funding for schools and education. And like I said, unemployment benefits extended through the end of the year, $300 in extra unemployment benefits through the end of the year. It's expected to be released this week or early next week. But the question I'm asking right now, and economists are asking, is will we see another round of stimulus money, another relief package that goes above and beyond this because of the poor jobs numbers? And you're even hearing some White House economic advisors saying that that might be the case, that they're waiting on Congress to get this done. But these were not good numbers, folks. I mean, we saw a decline in unemployment claims over the past few weeks, and then this week, up, and not good, and no way to spin it. I mean, even Fox News, my buddy, Charles Payne over at Fox News, he was trying, I think maybe trying to sugarcoat it, and he couldn't. They had Tyler Goodspeed on the show, who's a Council of Economic Advisors chairman and who went through these numbers, and he couldn't spin it either. These are not good jobs numbers. And if there's a silver lining in the fact that we have terrible jobs numbers and unemployment numbers, it's that perhaps that's a signal to the federal government to get off your butt and actually pass something meaningful for the American people right now. So here's Tyler Goldspeed, 10-speed, Goodspeed, Tyler Goodspeed, with his thoughts on this stimulus. And Charles Payne sounding pained when he asked this question.
Weekly jobless claims unexpectedly rising to over 1.1 million last week. In fact, that's the largest single weekly increase since March. Since the pandemic lockdowns began, more than 57 million Americans have filed for unemployment, about 36% of the workforce. For more, I want to bring in Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Tyler Goodspeed, who is live at the White House. Tyler, thanks for joining us. Listen, it's a tough number no matter what, but when you see that kind of a bump, it's very dispiriting, particularly considering how well we've done during this enormous period. What's the reaction at the White House, and what's the game plan to get us back on track?
Well, certainly we were hoping to observe a third successive week of declining initial unemployment claims following 2 successive weeks of declining claims in excess of 200,000. We were somewhat encouraged to observe a continued big decline in continuing claims for the week ending August 8th. In fact, that was the third successive week of declines in continuing claims greater than 600,000. And also we're definitely watching closely the movement in the not seasonally adjusted numbers, because at times, because seasonal adjustment factors are multiplicative, in periods of high unemployment, we think that those numbers might be less representative than usual. So we actually did observe a smaller increase in initial claims and also a bigger decrease in continuing claims. But look, we would very much like to be observing an even faster labor market recovery than we've been experiencing, and that's why we've been very disappointed not to see a greater sense of urgency in Congress for a Phase 4 agreement on those provisions for which there is bipartisan support.
So what specific provisions are we talking about here? Are we talking about the unemployment benefits? There's not really bipartisan support on that. Democrats want $600 a week. Republicans want $300. What else are we looking at? Stimulus checks at $1,200. So $1,200 stimulus checks. Yes, there's bipartisan support on that, but they can't come to the table and get the other things passed. There's bipartisan support for Paycheck Protection Program for businesses. So there's that. But there's no, where is the other bipartisan support? And the fact that Congress is away and the White House is sitting there saying that they're disappointed. You have a president of the United States with the most powerful office in the world. If I were president of the United States, I would be out on that podium every day talking about how we must right now pass additional stimulus for the American people. If you really care about it, you have the power of the presidency to get out there right now, stand in front of the American people and tell them that you want additional stimulus passed for the American people. Right, Ava?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wants additional stimulus as well. Making sure that the American people have it. Again, if you're president of the United States, get out there. Use the power of the presidency. So I love all of these White House guys that come out on the White House lawn. They're like, we're just disappointed. We're just disappointed. Yeah, you know what? I don't hear, other than that little dog and pony show a few weeks ago where the president rolled out his executive orders, I don't hear almost any talk about this from the administration, other than an occasional tweet about how he wants Steve Mnuchin to roll out additional stimulus checks, and that's about it. But you've got the power of the presidency, and you're this far down in the polls right now, 11 points behind Joe Biden, and you tell people that you really care about them, get out there, grab a microphone, and pound it every day and tell people that you want additional stimulus, and Congress should get back to town right now. That should be the only thing he's talking about right now. But again, I always remind you on the show, watch what they say and do, not what they, watch what they do, not what they say. Always watch what they do. And if the president and the White House really cared about the American people right now, they would be on not just CNBC shows and business shows, which are talking right to Wall Street. They would be on the Today Show, or I don't know, The View, or I don't know. I'm thinking about other shows that aren't Wall Street style shows. And they would be getting that message through the American people that we want additional stimulus. Instead, they keep sending Larry Kudlow and these economic advisors out and doing episodes on, or going to CNBC, going to Fox Business, going to these other places. And instead, they could be talking directly to the American people. They're not. So when you listen to what they say, they're telling you, oh, we want additional stimulus. But what do? They're talking to Wall Street people. That's what they're doing. By going on CNBC and Fox Business, they're talking to Wall Street. And they're telling Wall Street that this is what we want. We're taking care of businesses and liability protection. And that's why the S&P 500 yesterday saw a record. I mean, huge gains in the stock market. I mean, that's why I do this show, folks, because I don't think you're going to hear this anywhere else. You know, if you tune into CNBC and Fox Business and Bloomberg and these other places, what you're going to hear is people kowtowing to Wall Street. And they admit it. They admit it because they can have people on their shows who are CEOs of companies, and they'll kiss their butts and they'll come on those shows because it's good for their company, it's good for Wall Street, and it's a whole big love fest over on those Wall Street shows. But watch what they do. Watch what they do. And what are they doing? The White House continues to send out Larry Kudlow, Stephen Mnuchin, and what interviews are they doing? They're doing Wall Street shows. Again, watch what they do. Don't listen to what they say. And that's exactly what's happening. Why isn't the president talking about it at every rally that he can? Why? Because they've already got their stimulus, folks. Wall Street already has their stimulus. They took care of them. That's why they're record profits right now in the stock market. That's why there's broad-based consensus on Wall Street that everything's fine. The Federal Reserve keeps pumping money into that sector. They're doing fine. That's why President Trump isn't talking about it any more than he has to. He's mentioning it glancingly here and there. That's it. Watch what they do, not what they say. That's exactly what's happening. I think it's, look, I think it's incredibly important because you're seeing it in the flesh right now. You're seeing no one talking about it in Washington. You're seeing very little reporting of it. And Congress is home right now. And next week, of course, we're preparing for the Republican National Convention. Let's watch next week. How much discussion is about the little person in America, the person who's really suffering? Let's talk about that next week. I cannot wait to see what Republicans have to say about the people that are really suffering right now. Let's see if anybody talks about stimulus next week. Let's see if they call for additional stimulus for the little person, for the person that doesn't have a 500 employee business. That's what I'm going to be watching for next week. It's a tale of two different governments. So, will these job numbers lead us to seeing additional stimulus? I sure as heck hope so. If you listen to the Federal Reserve say that we need continuous regular stimulus, and you see these jobs numbers that we just saw that are not good, this is a clear sign, folks, that we need additional stimulus right now. We are on the precipice of an economic disaster, the likes of which we've never seen before. When you have hotels closing left and right, you have hospitality, service industry employees out of jobs and never getting a job again, or not getting a job anytime soon. Hotels, all kinds of travel and leisure businesses just being crushed, which is adversely affecting minorities in this country. It's incredibly, troubling. And a completely tone-deaf Washington, D.C. right now. Totally tone-deaf. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Do you think we'll see next week from the Republican National Convention any real mention of the little person? You know, the person who's just trying to put food on their table, who doesn't make a lot of money, who's trying to take care of a family, work hard, and provide, and who continues to get screwed by this government. I've seen the light. I really have seen the light. I have been a fiscal conservative. I don't like buying liabilities. I don't like wasting money on a $900 billion a year defense budget. I always love getting these arguments with conservatives who want to tell me that they are fiscal conservatives, and yet they're willing to waste billions of dollars on defense budgets so we can go bomb a guy on a camel in Afghanistan, line the pockets of defense contractors. You're really conservative? Sure you are. But you like to wrap yourself in a patriotic cloth. That's how you get away with pretending that you're a fiscal conservative. So I truly am a fiscal conservative. I don't like people wasting money on stupid crap. Buying liabilities, going into credit card debt, buying automobiles that they don't need, and getting out huge student loans. So in that way, I am a fiscal conservative. I also don't like the government wasting money on things that it doesn't need. Gas masks and F-18 fighter planes that sit there covered in dust because we're not using them. That's the kind of stuff where I'm a fiscal conservative. But where I am socially liberal is in wanting to make sure that every one of our citizens is taken care of. And no family in America should be hungry. When we're spending $900 billion a year so we can shoot a guy on a camel in Afghanistan, you mean to tell me that our inner cities, our roads that are crumbling, our bridges that are falling apart, families that are going hungry across this country don't have enough money to pay their rent and put food on the table, and yet other countries can figure this out? America likes to label itself as the greatest country in the world. Start acting like it. You're not. When I see what other countries in Europe do, you have countries like, Norway, which has one of the highest standards of living. Yes, their taxes are high, but you know what? No one wants to move away from Norway. Denmark, the same thing. I encourage all of you to go and watch why Denmark is considered the happiest country in the world, and listen to their college kids talk about it. They're like, we don't plan to leave. I'm starting a business. I'm working hard. I'm studying. And guess what? Our college and university is paid for and taken care of. We have a great standard of living. I make a great wage. I have health care taken care of. And I don't feel the stress. My government takes care of me. And yet they're entrepreneurial. They have a way of life. They're happy. Their health is top notch. And you mean to tell me, I love how we always want to spin things about Europe. Oh, you want to turn into Europe? Really? Open your brain. And the sort of wrapping yourself in an American flag patriotism where you say that we're the greatest country in the world, and yet you start acting like it. And it sort of gets you off the hook for having to, when you lay claim to that kind of stuff, then it gets you off the hook for having to explain yourself. Well, I'm a patriot. That's why I support my 900. That's why you're going to cut the defense budget? I'm a patriot. What are you, a communist? And it just shuts down any frank discussion, right? It shuts down any rational discussion about how we spend our money in this country. No, I'm a patriot. I'd like to protect America, but from what? What? What's really the threat? Is the threat the fact that we're way behind in science and math and we're losing to China? We're losing our manufacturing base. We're losing big contracts to other countries. Other countries are just beating us in science and technology in other areas now. So what does it mean to win? What are we winning? We can win wars. Okay, great. Well, we haven't done a good job of that lately either. So what are we winning? You want to wrap yourself in this sort of patriotic blanket. Shuts down any discussion of, when I've had discussions with military fanatics who just love the military, and I do too. I've come from a family of people who've served, not in a standing army that's had to sit there and just suck the country dry with money. Getting these debates about, really, do you think it's necessary to spend $900 billion a year for what? To line all these defense contractors' pockets? to build experimental tanks, to spend, $5 million on one aircraft. For what? So that you can make Boeing happy, Lockheed happy, so that you can keep getting your votes every time, Senator, from them. They keep funneling millions of dollars into your campaign because you'll take care of them. You'll take care of Lockheed. You'll take care of Boeing. You'll make sure that those guys are taken care of. And yet teachers are having to buy their own supplies at schools, and kids don't have Wi-Fi in order to take virtual classes. It's just... just don't throw your baseless political arguments at me anymore. I think before we open our mouths and want to, label someone a certain thing, just take a deep breath and really think about what it means. When you say you are a liberal, when you are a conservative, what does that actually mean? Conservative, it means you like to conserve, right? Conserve our land, our water, our natural resources. So are you conservative? Like, you believe in the environment? You like to conserve money, not waste things? Okay, then why do you then also support us wasting money on things we don't need in the military? Like, how do you square those two things? Because you're a patriot? That's a baseless argument. What does it mean to be a patriot? So one guy with a machete in Bangladesh is threatening us, and we need to spend $900 billion a year to go after him? And yet we have more domestic terrorism than we do international terrorism? Why don't we spend more money on homeland security than we do at the defense level? I'm just asking, Sorry for asking these questions and making us think about these things as we enter the weekend. I'm sorry to go on so long, but man, this just got me fired up. This idea that we really have to wait for a jobs report. We really have to wait till these jobs numbers come in and further elucidate the point that people are suffering, and that maybe this will push Congress to take some sort of an action. But I'm not hopeful on it. As we continue to have a president who dawdles and shows no leadership on this subject, and who wants to play dog and pony show political football instead of actually get up there with a microphone and say, look, I'm not playing golf this weekend. I want to bring Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, all these leaders to Camp David this weekend, and we're going to fix this. Should have done 3 months ago, but he didn't. That's leadership. We've got a national economic crisis. We've got a pandemic. We've got wildfires driving people out of their homes. We've got storms in Iowa. And by the way, we have two tropical storms that are heading towards the United States now. 2 tropical storms that could hit us simultaneously next week. That's right. And while this president dawdles, it's going to be my new D word. We've got so many people suffering right now. Show some leadership. So we'll see next week, everyone. The Republican National Convention. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week and this tale of 2 different visions for our government. But time for politics is over. Where do you stand? What do you believe in? And what I believe in is we have the wealthiest country in the world. We have more billionaires making money hand over fist during this pandemic than ever before. And we have more people suffering than ever before. And it's so convenient to say, oh, you're a socialist if you want to provide people with, $2,000 a month for the next year. You're a socialist. How are we going to pay for that? Okay. Look at yourself in the mirror before you ask such an asinine question. How are we going to pay for that? Really? How do we pay $900 billion a year so we can build tanks that we don't need? Really? What are you more concerned with? Helping people in your country, the least among us, or helping us build tanks? I can tell you where I'm at. And am I less of a patriot because I want to help our people than build tanks to protect us against what? I mean, what? We did not have a standing army when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. We didn't. And then when Dwight Eisenhower was leaving office, He warned the American people in his famous farewell address. I encourage all of you to go watch it. Watch the documentary called Why We Fight. But in his farewell address, Dwight Eisenhower said, beware the military-industrial complex, which we've now built. We don't need it. We don't need a military-industrial complex. We built it, and it's here forever. I think it's a travesty, and I think the amount of money that goes to that is detrimental to the American people, and there's not enough people talking about it. And I'm going to continue to talk about it because it's important. And if that makes me less of a patriot to talk about how much money we're wasting lining defense contractors' pockets, then fine. Then I'm not a patriot. Fine. But I know that in a short amount of time, when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, we assembled an army and a navy and had, in a short amount of time, and were able to fight and win in World War II. So don't tell me that we need to spend that amount of money to keep this mothballed army and navy and aircraft sitting there that we don't need, and military bases all around the world that we spend money on for no reason, while people suffer and can't put food on their table and can't pay their rent. That's garbage. You're not going to win that argument with me. And if that makes me less of a patriot, then so be it. I don't care. I don't need your labels. So that's my thought on this Friday. Sorry I'm a little fired up, but as everything I've been digesting over the past 24 hours and watching these speeches and then watching the White House response to it, it just makes me sick. It really makes me sick that this is where we are, and this is where we are in this country right now. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. I want to thank everyone for all of your super chats today. Let me see how these super chats work. I think when I put these up here on the channel here, I'm going to pull him up here. Terry Greco says, you're the best because I follow you because you speak the truth. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with being a patriot, but what does it mean to be a patriot? Someone asks, what's wrong with being a patriot? There's nothing wrong with being a patriot, but I also think it can be incredibly troubling to also, remember when you think about, I'll just say this on the side because I think about this a lot. Our national borders, right? Our borders are human-made. They're artificial. It's a human-made construct that we have these borders through the middle of a country and through a middle of a landmass, and we put a flag down and say this is mine and you can't come here. It's human. We made that stuff. So I think it's very dangerous. I think it is very dangerous. Like nationalism it can be very dangerous at the cost of excluding other people, as if some other human being is not human enough for you because you were born in a certain country. That's garbage. I mean, that's absolute garbage. I often feel the people that feel that way, the people that feel like, look, America's the greatest country in the world, keep everyone out of our country, keep your immigrants out of here, et cetera, et cetera. These are the people that have never once traveled in their life. Very often. These are the people that have never traveled internationally. They have no sense of perspective. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you joining us today. You need Grover today. I do need Grover. I miss my boy. I love that. Mark Marcus says, just a word, people. It's a word, patriotism. People don't even know what it means. They think if they fly the American flag that they're a patriot. Right. I saw someone say when President Obama was speaking at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, I saw someone say, yeah, where's the American flag behind him? There was no American flag. They were in the Constitution Center, and behind him was the Constitution. And someone literally was like, he's not a patriot. There's no American flag behind him in a camera shot. Who gives a rat's ass? Really? I remember so many people used to pick on Obama for not wearing a flag pin. Sometimes, like, to be like, oh, he doesn't have a flag pin on. He's not a patriot. Must be a communist. Okay. So you have to adorn yourself in paraphernalia in order to be patriotic. That's like a few of my Christian friends, they can't stand it. They can't stand Christian-based businesses, that have like a Jesus fish like in their logo. They're like, oh, I would never, and they're Christian. They're like, I would never do business with one of those people because the fact that they're putting that in their logo tells you about themselves. It's like the people that want to adorn themselves in these logos and paraphernalia and sayings and slogans that somehow makes them more Christian, more patriotic. It's a bunch of garbage. It's garbage. When I worked at Fox News and I was a news anchor there, people are like, you're so conservative. You're so conservative. How do you support? And I say, when would you ever point to an interview that I've ever done on the air where I'm showing my politics in some way that shows you that I'm one way or the other and not just trying to be a realist? But people just make assumptions about you. Oh, you worked at Fox News, therefore this. Oh, you're from Philadelphia, therefore this, which I am. I'm just sad. I'm just sad. I'm just sad for my country, is how I feel about it, to be honest with you. As a history major, as a student of history, and I just would sit and devour books on the Civil War and the Revolutionary War and World War II, and see like what we're going through right now. It's like, God, I saw great minds that would come together and work through differences and get things solved, and now like we have a president literally who's tweeting about the fact that Goodyear Tire doesn't want any political paraphernalia in their offices, and they don't want MAGA hats. So now we're boycotting Goodyear tires over MAGA hats. Remember the Starbucks boycott a few years ago, which I thought was one of the stupidest news stories I'd ever heard. I mean, this is worthless garbage. So you're going to boycott Goodyear tires, which now could lose 60,000 employees during a pandemic in Ohio. Smart move. That's good. I mean, come on. I just say what you will. I mean, say what you want about politics, but would you ever see President Obama do something that stupid? No, you wouldn't. I've seen President Obama do some stupid things. He wouldn't do something that stupid. I've seen Bill Clinton do a lot of stupid things. I don't believe he'd do something that stupid. I've seen George W. Bush do a lot of stupid things too. I don't think he'd do something that stupid. But he'd also have Karl Rove right there to tell him, don't do that. That's Ohio. There's 60,000 jobs. We need Ohio. It's a swing state. What the heck are you thinking? Anyway, that's my Friday message for you. I'm fired up today. I love all of you guys. Thank you guys so much for subscribing today. If you're new here, we do this show live 9 a.m. Eastern time. Look, I'm traveling right now, so we're going to try to do a show on Monday. We'll see if we can get some of the kinks worked out here on the sound effects. And I know people are complaining a little bit about the clicking here. We're going to get that nipped in the bud. That's when you guys post a message, it creates this little click and lets me know you're posting a message. So unfortunately, it makes that little clicking. So we're trying to get this worked out. Let me ask you this. If I run this, can you answer me this at home right now? If I run a video, can you tell me in the chat? Just let me know. It's going to be real-time feedback right now, if you don't mind. It seems out of sync without Grover. I know, I need Grover. I'm not going to see him until like Wednesday. Since we're traveling right now, Gregory, thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say, Gregory. Gregory said this is his first live chat with me. I'll put that up here on the screen if I can. There you go. Gregory Venezuela. Valenzuela? I hope I'm saying that right. My first live stream with you. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. Pat Pfeiffer says, kick back with the family and enjoy. I am. I'm going to go to the pool in a little bit with them. So I'm going to play this video. Can you guys let me know if the video plays? Am I in the lower left-hand corner? Will you let me know that? This new software, I want to see how this works. If I'm playing this video, this UFO video, are you seeing me in the lower left-hand corner? Because that's what I'm seeing. Just curious. Let me see. Just let me know in the chat. Stephanie Gazelle, thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. It shows me in the middle. So if you see me, do you guys see me right now on the screen? Yes, in the lower left-hand corner. Okay. Okay. So again, I'm using, it's the best broadcast software for the Mac is what I'm using right now. Normally what we use is we have our 4K streaming studio. And so because I'm traveling right now, had to do some makeshift rigmarole here. But anyway, so thank you guys so much. If you're interested in the UFO story tonight, we'll have an update on our channel over at youtube.com/paranormalpost. So go check that out. I'm going to try to finish this book today, do some reading and just relax a little bit for the rest of the day. So much love to all of you. If there's any big stimulus news or any other big economic news, I will try to bring it to you. Otherwise, I'm going to try to spend a few days here with my kids before they go back to school and a little family time as much as I can here. So much love to all of you for joining us. Sorry about the hiccups that we had on the stream at the beginning, trying to get the live stream switched around, and we had the terrible Wi-Fi. So sorry about all of that, everyone. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, smashing that like button, and we will see you very, very soon. Be safe, everyone.